Welcome to this new episode of Norwich Theatre Talks. One of the things I've enjoyed most about hosting these podcasts is the huge range of different comedians I get to talk to who always make me laugh, but always tell me a little something about their view on the world, which is always different from comedian to comedian. On Norwich Theatre Talks today is one of the most respected comedians, writers and actors working in the UK today. He is no stranger to Norwich at all, and he is known as the king of satire. I'm delighted to welcome, talking about his new show, Marcus Brigstocke. Marcus, welcome to Norwich Theatre Talks. You're no stranger at all to Norwich, but you're back and you're out on tour with your new show at the minute. Tell us a bit about the show.
Well, it's called Vitruvian Mango.
Good words.
Yeah, and it's about men.
Okay.
Let's start with the serious stuff, and then we can dispense with that. There's up the gentle end, you could say, there's a malaise across men at the moment. There's the manosphere and men's rights activists and Andrew Tate and all of that. There's the number one cause of death in men under 50 is suicide. 96% of the prison population is men. You know, like the numbers are bad. So I wanted to use comedy to explore this, to explore the idea of like, what are men for? I mean, I've got a dad in his 80s. I'm in my 50s. I've got an adult son who's 22 and a baby son who's 3. And not one of us has got the first clue what we're here for.
No. And you're right. There's a world around this at the moment where it's constantly being questioned, isn't it? Is this like as well as an exploration, a bit of a kind of clarion call for just tell us, world, what it is you want from us?
Well, this is the thing, right? I think it's legit to say that there's a list of stuff that all the nice men I know accept, the list of stuff that is not wanted from us anymore, right? Old patriarchal thinking that people are like, yeah, no, it's no good to us. But what I think we haven't quite managed yet is to come up with, okay, well, what are we for? And there's sort of threats perceived and threats actual. So one of the things that I think men are not taking seriously enough is AI. I mean, there's writers and creatives and authors who all believe AI is a threat to them. It's the biggest threat to men. AI will talk bollocks on any given subject without knowing if it's true and just carry on anyway. I mean, that's our territory. If AI learns to lean on a bar and interrupt women, that'll be it.
Absolutely. But it feels a bit like this is a bit less kind of like defensive and not anti some of the kind of messaging that's coming from women.
100%.
In a corporate sense, it'd be like, give us an appraisal. Let's go through this. Let's have a personal development plan set around this.
Yeah. So when I started talking to Rachel about creating this show, quite rightly, and she's my Jiminy Cricket conscience, she was like, wait, are you a meninist now? And I was like, no, I'm not a meninist. She said, okay, well, listen, like, I love you and I know you're very funny and everything, but you better make sure that's crystal clear. So I do some stuff right at the top of the show. I usually say to the audience, I say, right, everybody keep still. No one look left or right. Men, blink twice if you think this is women's fault. And then from there, we can sort of address it isn't. The call's coming from inside the house. I mean, that's, again, like, that's the sort of thing that underpins all of this is that, the patriarchy, for all the damage it's done as a system, it damages so many men as well. I'm a good example, right? I'm a dad to 3 kids. I'm a very happily successful comedian, posh, white, middle-class man, all that kind of stuff. But still, like, the patriarchal way of thinking, which is supposed to advantage me, it's a hindrance. It gets in the way because it's messing up the lives and the systems in the world I choose to live in. So it's rejecting that and asking, well, what's good about us? What's nice about men?
Yeah. I guess, because, I mean, there's 2 things, isn't there? There's like your lived experience and why you want to do this now. But then we'll come back to that in a second. But I guess with any comedy show, there must be, and I've talked about this loads, like a risk assessment process you go through in your own head, be corporate again, around, okay, how far can I go? How far can I go? But with this subject, it's so it's so kind of like a tinderbox, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so well, that's partly why stand up is the perfect way of dealing with subjects like this,
Yeah,
because stand up has the rule at the center of it, which is if you're not laughing, I'm not doing my job.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right, so there's your first set of guide rails. You can be offensive and that's absolutely fine, but if you're too offensive, people will stop laughing, so the contract is broken.
yeah,
You can be deep and clever and, you know, analyze it and study it properly and all the rest of it, but again, if you break the contract that the audience isn't laughing, well, then
yeah,
you're not doing stand up. So that's like a really perfect way of keeping you honest as a performer, and it means within those rail tracks that you have to sit on, that my worries about what's appropriate and what's not end up taking a second seat, because if they're laughing, then I know I've been understood. If they're laughing, then I know I haven't pushed them into a place where they feel uncomfortable with what I'm saying. So it's, you know, I've always said stand up is the perfect way of communicating difficult, complicated ideas. And the big upside, apart from how pleasurable laughter is that people tend to remember what's been said if they found it funny.
yeah. And it is, yeah. That I've never heard it articulated. That it is a kind of contract, isn't it? It's a contract.
Yeah,
Okay, what's acceptable to say in this space? How far to push it? How not? But I
yeah.
guess as well, when it's based on your own personal experience, how to kind of manage that space between kind of being reflective and a therapy session, because
Exactly.
yes, and how do you judge that line of the TMI line?
Ah, well, yeah. Okay, so that's interesting. I mean, that's something I have to be quite careful about because I'm very unfiltered as a
Yeah,
person.
yeah,
I've just learned over years and years and years. The more honest you are with the largest number of people, the
yeah,
happier you'll be in the end. But you know, I'm also a father, and I'm also a husband, and I'm also a son and a brother. So there's sort of considerations about family. But again, when you're in the room, and it's why, as much as I love, you know, having my stand-up specials out there and viewable by people, nothing beats being in the room,
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
know. And there is even though it's a lot of people, there is an intimacy
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
that process. There's a sort of bond of trust, and it's why when mobile phones get snuck out sometimes in a show and something gets discreetly filmed, which of course lots of comics want to happen now, and then they post it going comedian destroys heckler, you know, I sort of feel like the contract gets broken. It's the same, that's the audience's
yeah, yeah.
deal. You know, you don't chat to each other during the show, you don't film bits or mess around on your phone, because we're having a hopefully an intimate conversation, you know.
But that kind of goes full circle because I was reading a bit about the show and
Mm.
googling Vitruvian. I'll happily admit,
Yes.
it's like it makes a lot of sense for me for you to be kind of tackling this subject because you've always been quite open and like
Yeah,
refreshingly open, which I think will have been empowering to so many men over the period of your career. And the thing you're tackling is about men being prepared to be vulnerable, isn't it?
absolutely. Yeah,
And that's kind of got integrity and authenticity
yeah.
to me.
I mean, what or one of the things in the show is exactly that, talking about vulnerability as a subject and about where the lines are, but also something I'm sort of pleased I found this as a comic idea is be patient with our dads, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
the
yeah,
men who served in the First and Second World Wars. I mean, you know, we just recently marked the 80th anniversary of VE Day. Those men didn't process their trauma
yeah,
for two reasons. One, no one wanted them to, and
no,
two, there was nowhere to go. There was
yeah,
no one to go, oh, yes, go and tell me all about that. So we must be patient generationally. It's no good looking at my dad's generation and going, oh, well, you know, they're all this, they're all bigoted and stiff upper lip and closeted and da 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 and all the rest of it. They're not. They are what they've been shown. So, and I talk about that quite a lot in the show because I've definitely been guilty of impatience and intolerance for the generations, in this instance particularly of men
yeah,
who came before, and we I can't expect them, just as my children can't expect me to understand instinctively the things that they do, because change comes when it comes, right? Change comes
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
usually when someone shows you how to change.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So, and I really like that. And I'm very clear with the audience. I'm not letting anybody off the hook because it's difficult. The reason to engage with this stuff is partly because it's difficult. That means it's worthwhile. But we
yeah, yeah,
must be patient with those generations. And my own vulnerability is what it is. You know, I've struggled with addiction, particularly across my life, and that's probably existed both under other umbrellas of mental health and beneath that other consequences that have come. And I
yeah.
found it helpful to me and in the end to others to be very honest about that. So
Yeah, and there's something about, isn't there? You know that it's an old adage and it's true, but laughter is the best medicine. You need to kind of be able to
yeah.
reconcile.
Oh man. Being in a room together with others, laughing. Right. I mean, I think my experience outside of being a comedian is that that's what we all are looking for.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, obviously we're looking also for gentleness and quiet and ourselves and da da da. But really, like, what's the pinnacle? What's the stuff you talk about? And it's usually you were somewhere in a room, outdoors, wherever, with friends,
yeah,
and laughter nearly always emerges out of that. Sometimes tears as well, just as good, nearly as good, you know. But yeah, I mean that shared experience of being in a room and all laughing together. And I'm, you know, as a comic, you have to be a bit careful of this, but I'm pleased that I find what I'm doing funny. It
yeah, yeah,
makes I don't stop and laugh in the same way that the audience do. That would be weird and creepy.
yeah,
But I find it funny. It's tickling me while I do it, which is why I'm doing it. And if I didn't have that, it would be a very cynical exercise. It would be like, no, look, I'm here to just deliver this thing. You laugh, I'm busy. I
yeah, yeah,
find it all very funny,
yeah, yeah,
especially because it's difficult, right? That's the thing I like the most, actually, is take it. I've done this for years now with my stand up. I mean, I did a show, the whole show was me as Lucifer, right? Full red makeup, horns, the whole bit. And the show was about forgiveness.
yeah,
It was about our capacity as human beings to forgive each other and forgive ourselves. And if, in the end, Lucifer saying, I don't want you
yeah,
arriving in hell full of hatred for yourselves and each other because you're incapable of forgiveness. So it was a big, to me, very important message that I was proud to sort of develop. But again, it comes back to that thing of like, yeah, but if it ain't funny, then I can't do it, right? So yeah,
I could talk to you about it. It says something, doesn't it, about the evolution of comedy as an art form? And I think people
yeah,
forget it is a genuine art form. I always remember, like years ago, Victoria Wood saying, "Well, you know, she was of a generation that comedians are either deeply melancholic or just love golf." But actually, there's that there's that bit in the middle, isn't there, where the melancholy and the golf, the sort of frippery kind of meet, you know, and
yeah,
that's
yeah, absolutely. And I think, just before Vic became successful, the old, what we called the old mainstream of comedians. I mean, if you look back at Les Dawson, who was a good example of
yeah,
somewhat, the baby got thrown out with the bathwater. Les was one of the greatest there's ever been, and the melancholia of Les's
yeah,
experience
yeah,
of his upbringing and how he lived as a young man, like, it was all there. It was all on display. And who was that brilliant Irish comedian? Oh God, he was so funny. I forget his name. And this is a function of being 52. He had half a finger missing, and he used to stand and tell stories. And he, along with Lenny Bruce, back in the
yeah,
day, like, they went there, they explored the difficult stuff,
yeah.
and they used comedy brilliantly, absolutely brilliantly, to turn over difficult ideas, look at the underbelly of it. And for me, that's always been my favorite kind of comedy. That said, I was away at a festival with Tim Vine just recently, and I haven't gigged with Tim. I used to gig with Tim quite a lot. Just the absolute glee of someone embracing silliness to that extent. I mean, once Tim gets you laughing, you can never recover from it. It's amazing.
Completely. I mean, bring it on. The world needs
Yes,
to. Marcus, I could talk to you for hours, but your show's coming to Norwich Playhouse on 17th and 18th of June. Check it out
yes.
at norwichtheatre.org. But there's one final thing for everybody on Norwich Theatre Talks. We play a little game with a random question generator in this here
Oh,
pot. And I'm going to grab a question. All these questions are around talking and why it's good to talk. So I'm going to throw one at you, if that's okay.
hit me.
Chosen at random. Okay. What's the funniest misunderstanding you've had because of miscommunication?
Oh. Well, actually, there's one in the show.
Okay.
So I talk about neurodiversity, right? So I'm a little bit neurodiverse, but only a little bit. I'm dyslexic, which is, let's face it, that's the chicken korma of neurodiversity. And I was filling in a form. I had to get a new GP, and I get very tense when I'm filling in forms. The dyslexia flares up.
Yeah.
And I thought, they're asking too many questions anyway. Like, one of the questions was, do you have a career? And I was like, well, yes, I do. It was quite defensive. I was like, yes, I do. I ticked that. And then the next question was, and will your career need to attend GP's meetings with you? And I was like, that's... Oh, it's carer. It's carer. It's fine. It's fine.
Carer.
I'd already ticked it. So, yeah, there you go. There's a recent example. Being dyslexic, those misunderstandings happen all the time. I once went to a toga party dressed as a goat.
Amazing. Amazing. Oh, Marcus, thank you so much for joining me on Norwich Theatre Talks. Can't wait to have you back in Norwich and see the new show, Vitruvian Mango.
Can't wait to come. Thanks, mate.
Well, thank you for listening or watching another episode of Norwich Theatre Talks, and my huge thanks to Marcus Brigstocke for joining me as my guest. As ever, we'll be back again soon, so keep an eye on our website. Let us know who you'd like us to talk to and the things you'd like us to talk about.